Colleagues, welcome. Colleagues, welcome. My name is Gleb Wisniewski. I'm the Executive Director of the Center of Economic Strategy. Very thankful for your joining to our today's discussion about the trade of Ukraine and the European Union, the challenges of the partially open access. We have prepared a project together with the European Union. This project is taking place together with the European Union, who is actually helping us to discuss those challenges which happen in the process of integration to the common market. In order to listen to us in English, please choose English on the globe below, and you can leave your questions to speakers in the Q&A or chat. Today, among our participants of the discussion, we will have Taras Kachka, Deputy Minister of the Economy of Ukraine, and the Trade representative of Ukraine, who for quite a long time is working with these issues and is actually one of the carrier of the biggest technical expertise for these issues in the Ukrainian authorities, Olga Trofimtseva, who is until recently was an ambassador for some special things from the foreign ministry. Before that, she was in the agrarian policy. She was also performing the responsibilities of the minister, and also Nazar Babitsky, who we met when he was still responsible for the trade issues in the representation of Ukraine in the European Union. Nazar is also for quite a long time is working with all of these issues, and he has now a wide access and good experience of talking exactly to the Polish colleagues. Today, we have a certain exception from our standard models of the panel discussions. The moderation we asked today Veronika Movchan. She is our colleague from the Institute of the Economic Research and Political Consultations. She's doing a lot of scientific work, research work. I believe that in our environment of the research centers, she's the best expert for trade issues, especially what concerns the trade issues related to the European integration efforts. So I would like to pass the floor to Veronika, who is much better expert than myself in order to moderate this discussion and to put all the most acute questions and come to a better understanding to what we will be discussing for the future. Veronika, the floor is yours. Gleb, thanks to you. Colleagues, very happy to welcome you. It's a great pleasure that there are so many of us to discuss the trade relations with the European Union. The European Union is for a long time is a key trade partner for Ukraine, but after the start of the full-scale aggression of Russia, actually, the European Union has become a dominant partner. Some 2/3 of exports go, and half of imports are from the European Union. And considering the logistics limitations through the European Union, we have the overwhelming majority of the Ukrainian trade with various goods. So we can't avoid it in any case. And this relationship, on the one hand, they are the closest, at the same time, they are most complicated. So this fact of being complicated, I'm talking about that there are a lot of dimensions to this. So I wanted to talk about it. So we have roughly 1 hour. So I would like to call colleagues to be as short and specific as possible in their answers. We will have the panel discussion. I will ask questions, both as my questions, and I will also select the most interesting questions from the Q&A session and chat. So I will try to give the possibility of our really great colleagues to talk on a maximum number of issues. But let's start with grains, because this is something that is being talked about by everyone who is talking about the European Union's trade. And that's the first question from my side to you, what we should expect from the European Union and Poland for the future next week. What will Poland do? Many thanks. I see Nazar is smiling. Okay. That's the easiest question that you have chosen. Many thanks. First of all, I'm very happy to see all of you. I'm very happy also to see Nazar, and I hope that our Taras Kachka, our government frontrunner, will also join us. I'm very happy to see also the numerous guests of our today's event. Regarding this question, I didn't say that I'm a futurologist who is giving any kind of forecasts regarding such kind of things. But in reality, if we don't laugh about it anymore and talk seriously, then I think that until today, to the moment of our today's event, I don't see any breakthroughs in the situation or some good turns that would give me the possibility to evaluate that on the 15th of September, we will see something really a breakthrough announcement or some other different position of the European Union or Poland, who you have mentioned. Nazar and his, as already Gleb has announced, the person who is since a long time very closely cooperating with our Polish colleagues. Probably he will be able to say more, but now we can feel that our neighboring countries unfortunately remain on the position on which they were starting from spring this year. No changes in this position. I don't see the European Commission, unfortunately, even during the last meeting on the 6th of September, when there was a meeting of this was the topic agro. Again, no major decisions were taken, and that, honestly speaking, is what I would call a factor, quite a disappointment, to be honest, regarding the actions of the European Commission and Brussels, even from the start of this situation, how it developed. As a crisis manager, for me, the representatives of the European Commission are working quite weakly. Let's put it this way. After the 15th, we should not count, our exporters should not count that the situation will change significantly, although the work is in progress. And of course, I will try to somehow unblock these issues, but also from the political point of view, and until the elections in Poland, we should not expect any significant changes in their position. And once again, from the point of view of the speed of the European Commission's operation, that's another aspect which I'm always emphasizing, that the European Commission, unfortunately, or the European Union in general, unfortunately, they have become too bureaucratic and incapable to quickly react to similar challenges. So if any decisions are to be taken, it will be not on the 15th of September, slightly less soon later, regarding the compensation of our logistics and these temporary limitations, which once again, this will be supported by Taras and by Nazar, which are violating our agreements. And in principle, they are violating the internal rules of the European Union, which existed before that time. So somehow like that. Thank you so much. To make a short resume, so we expect the continuation of limitations for the 4 types of goods with keeping transit. Nazar, then the question is to you. To which extent do you know how this transit is taking place? To which extent it's really free? We're saying that we don't have access of 4 goods to 5 markets, but the rest is moving supposedly smoothly. Honestly speaking, I don't feel it like that it's as easy as it is written on paper. What would you say? Thank you. Welcome, colleagues. Welcome, participants of our today's webinar. Taras, you have switched off your sound. Yes, I would like to thank you for the possibility to have my say, and I would like to add to what Ms. Olga Trofimtseva has mentioned, that the situation will be slightly not so straightforward after the 15th of September. This is connected to the point that these processes are taking place at various levels. Let me start from one of these processes, one of these levels, also answering Veronica's question regarding the transit. The whole problem, unfortunately, is not on the surface of the political fights that are taking place in Poland, and is also a subject of some political discussion in Hungary and some other countries which are supposedly suffering from the excessive exports of grain from Ukraine. But the problem is that administrative conditions for the proper, smooth, friction-free transit of the Ukrainian grains are far from ideal. I would really separate two main factors that are talked about by the main market participants. First, what is foreseen by the European Union, somewhere where Ukraine has joined successfully, the European Convention, Anti-Science Convention. Formally, Ukraine is a member of this convention. Formally, it is part of this European legislation, but at very specific examples, in very specific cases, during the passing of the Ukrainian border, in the systems, let's put it this way, in the way that the Polish and Ukrainian customs authorities interact, in the way that they exchange data between Ukrainian and the Polish border control services, this convention simply doesn't work, and that's a huge problem. So often there is a huge gap between the proposals or the opinions heard in Brussels that Ukraine, Poland, and other sides are not using to maximum the possibility of the European legislation, but on the ground there are certain gaps where Ukrainian and political customs authorities should work under the political pressure in order to streamline this issue. The second big block of issues is, once again, I will not say anything new. The problem is that the railway infrastructure of Poland, same as other neighboring countries in the European Union, turned out to be not ready to that massive load with this bulk transportation of grains to ports of this country or elsewhere to the Western Europe. And unfortunately, this problem can't be solved immediately. We're talking about capexes that should last not one several months, but for over the last year, we have not seen that the financial instruments which were so much actively advertised by Brussels, they do have instruments of financing the improving the transportation infrastructure. There are certain bases to criticize that, unfortunately, these instruments, because they are either bureaucratized or through other reasons, they simply didn't put the foundation for the quick building of capacity to modernize this infrastructure. Well, possibly, I don't have that information. As far as I remember, the last time I heard this, that Ukrzaliznytsia has successfully applied and even received some additional financing in order to build up on the capacity to transport. Then, unfortunately, that's not, the ball is not on the Ukrzaliznytsia side. But unfortunately, this is also placed on the political context. There will be parliamentary elections in Poland. We have to understand the political dynamics in the neighboring country. The elections are to take place. Unfortunately, like in any other countries, farmers have quite a significant political vote, and they're using that. So the Polish government has taken the position which they have taken. Then some times ago, there was a signature, like a sign that we should temporarily ban imports to the national jurisdiction of Poland. Although there is the legislation of the European Union and there is the agreement in the European Union that we have the common customs space, and the Polish side, because of the logic of the election campaign, they are not ready to refuse until the 15th of October. That's when the Polish elections will take place, to refuse from the position that they have taken. What will be after the 15th of October, after the new coalition government will be formed based on the results of the election? To which extent the situation will normalize for the existing ruling party is difficult to say. Maybe it's possible to have some more pessimistic view Unfortunately, this is the position of Poland will become even harsher, and we will have to find common ground with the European Union, Poland, and some countries as Poland, as Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, in order to make sure that this transit would be really friction-free, without any frictions. Let me stop here. Thank you. It would be really nice to have the friction-free transit, but I don't think this is yet achieved so far. And it's very interesting to understand why the convention isn't working. The NCTS convention between Ukraine and Poland. I can tell you that Taras Kachka has joined us, so the next question will be to him. Taras, welcome. We have been discussing that so far we are expecting that the limitations that the European Union has initiated and the European Commission has supported for the limitations for the grains, they will be kept after the 15th of September, but we really want that the transit would be, at least transit would be friction-free. It's also a problem that it's very difficult to build up the capacity of the railway infrastructure. What Ukraine is doing in this situation, which instruments we have to press on the European Union, on Poland, which alternative routes we are now thinking about. And again, a big question whether grains is an exception or is this a sign that everything will be as well with other goods. That's the question for some 10 volumes, because everything will depend how you formulate your viewpoint. Depending, okay, what we're discussing. Are we discussing the politics or the possibility to export goods which the entrepreneurs have decided to export? Regarding the micro situation, we're living between Ukraine and the European Union. Regarding the exports of the Ukrainian produce to the European Union, these customs fees are not valid. They're not acting. That's good, because we are going mainly on the agrarian, and that's good, because we see that the trade with the European Union, it is developing, if we're talking about the EU 27. But we do have a big problem within our European integration things. We have talked a lot about it with you, with Nazar, with other participants, with Glib, with a lot of participants of this call. And I can also talk about the NCTS or permits for cars, this harmonized nomenclature, a lot of documents that are translated into a situation where we have the possibility for the simplification, active simplification of trade between Ukraine and the EU. Evidently, we will add the Institute of the Economic Operators. We really hope that the Ukrainian operators will start to be more active in registering as authorized economic operators in autumn, and that will really improve this mutual recognition, authorized economic operators. And this will also simplify trade in general. We have a number of challenges. Big challenge is logistical, also overall, and also taken with our mass products, because very evidently, until the sea isn't working in a proper way, we are quite stuffed with these logistical possibilities which we have between Ukraine and the European Union. We are being very active in 22 and 23. We have done really a lot in order to use this infrastructure to its maximum, but evidently we are still far from the potential. And that's where it all depends on what we want to talk about. We do have a problem of these mass products, we have millions of tons of exports of grains, and it's very evident here that Poland, we have to check per country. Poland, as at today, simply can't help us to increase exports, the transportation of additional 2-3 million tons of products, at least if we're talking about the grains. We're not talking about the iron ore, or that also concerns Slovakia and Hungary. The only thing where we would actually like to increase this capacity in significantly, it's the Danube, and we have some logistics also with some local river ports, as well as using the sea infrastructure of Romania. We have to understand it's really very much oriented towards the Black Sea. In addition to that, we are slowly improving the safe corridor of the Ukrainian ports around Odessa without the participation of other participants. So we are not waiting for peace with Russian Federation. We can see that 2 vessels have left with some containers. So we believe, we trust that slowly the ship will keep coming in, and we will have insurance, and insurance will become accessible in price. So the vessels would be able to come inside the Ukrainian ports, and we can see the potential for a very quick, several week also increasing of transshipment via Romania. We have a good cooperation in this triangle of Ukraine, Moldova, Romania regarding the railway transportation. That still can be improved, of course, and the same concerns the channels. Also, in principle, I just returned from Bucharest, and once again we discussed this question. So the European Union is joining us on that, even the United States. So the work is really ongoing. So this mass export will be still finalized. This is from the optimistic news. That coordination platform that we had created for finding solutions, the problem that we had from our neighboring countries about the ban of agricultural exports, it also worked. So we can clearly see how we can effectively use the funds for the building of capacity of infrastructure, which needs to be done now. So we have also found some 35 million that were supposed to be used for Russia and somebody else, but they can now be forwarded to infrastructure and other aspects of. So this is also quite good news. So we are working actively, jointly with European Union, with Moldova, on widening this logistics. But at the same time, I was also talking about Nazar. There is the problem with the Ukraine-Polish border. This is the problem for dozens of years to come, and this is connected to the fact that we believe that the Polish side could be more liberal in terms of the veterinary control, sanitary control, more through capacity, but that unfortunately can't be solved again within one day. Nevertheless, we will find this solution in any case. Everybody's connected, so we are looking for solutions, and it will also improve the control of the veterinary control and sanitary control. I also would agree that unfortunately the Polish railways is quite inert. It could react better to changes, but again, that's a question at the corporate level. So we can say that last year we more or less are moving okay. You can see me, right? We are moving fine regarding the development of trade as such, but as well as the infrastructure as such, but we do have a problem with the trading policy, and that what's also what concerns this ban. If we take to talk really cynically about it, we somehow, yeah, EU27, we are keeping the pace of exports to the extent possible. But the question is quite cynical that shows up, that is asked by these 5 member states, if the transit is going, if you are exporting to this, you can still have access to the Polish market. Yes, the Polish market is not really principal from the point of view, I mean, the internal Polish market. We believe that for us, we have quite a lot of Polish producers and the market is oversaturated. That's a good story, normal story. Again, we don't do any harm to them. We don't do any damage to them. The competition is always better than without competition. Same as we can live without this market, so the Polish farmers can also live with the present Ukrainian grains. I don't see any harm there. But next, what is really harmful? What really is it damaging? The damage is in the trading policy. If Poland believes that it's okay to limit the trade with for goods to its market through the European Commission or themselves, it's the level of hardness that they're talking about. I mean, it's our trading partner from the European institution. It's again a question, if you can limit this to 4 goods, where is the guarantee that you would not limit it to other products? You said raspberry, strawberry, dry milk, let's limit. So where is the guarantee that tomorrow we will not be limited by some X country like Tanzania, that they heard in the news that Ukraine is pouring its products elsewhere. So we didn't build the system of trade during 70 years to allow such sharp limitations. I mean, before the war, we had some research regarding the Ukrainian products in the European Union. We did some research, some investigations for Polish cheeses. The legal advisors, the economists were working. They were making a lot of work. So that is the system that the European Union has turned on, and we are the exporter country. We can't be accepting such an instrument. We don't think it's absolutely proper. So we are in clinch situation regarding the trading policy when Poland believes there is no other instrument other than the ban, although we believe that it's not solving any Polish rights on the internal market. Now, when there is a bank, the price for grains, they do have the low price for grains. It's not about ban. It's not the problem in the Ukrainian goods. You understand it perfectly well yourself. Why you're insisting on that? Elections, not elections. So the question is that the government has always to be rational, even in the period when they have to save themselves and save elections. So we are for Ukrainian farmers to earn and Polish farmers to earn. We don't think that it should be like that. And such a strong insisting on this ban, our reply will be going to WTO, because these are the basic principles. This is not even about bilateral agreement. It's a very basic principle. We have to show to the rest of the world that we don't want to tolerate such limitations, because tomorrow somebody else will make us cry. So the problem that we have at the moment, this is the problem which is not connected with commerce. Thanks God, the problem that we have, we are slowly solving them. We have some constructive interaction, but what really cuts us is the ban itself, because even the European Commission said in the beginning, in April, and I think even in June, this was like a prevention measure, because there was no harm, there was just this feeling. Now, when we are in the process when we have already evaluated the markets and we see that we don't violate the balances. So the question is why you're doing it. There is no point about doing this. So that's what the Polish colleagues are saying. They have a lot of arguments which are artificially prepared. They don't really belong to these arguments. So our job is to develop our trade with the European Union, provide full liberalization in both sides. That's the proposition on the table. Working on the increase of the logistics, what we are doing now, research what the problems are in Poland, in Romania, in Slovakia, search for these common things, because we are integrating into the EU and we have to solve this on a system base. With this, also to refuse from things which are absurd and which are harmful for Poland itself. Because if Poland doing this, then somebody else will do it against Poland tomorrow, China, or maybe not Germany, because it's within the EU, or for instance, Britain, because Poland has given an example and that will play against them. So we should not use this instrument. We have 1 week to find common ground in these things and do not come to this point where we are making this duel. So something that both sides have declared, but we're still searching for ways how to go away from these things, take into account this trading policy. Taras, thank you. The question here is, yes, Poland has opened up another Pandora box, and now any country can introduce their bans. To me, it's also the Pandora box in the European Union itself. I don't understand why the French or Dutch farmers would not close from chicken from Ukraine or beef from Brazil. So we are coming to a situation when the European market becomes quite separated. Let me pass the floor to Nazar, who raised his hand, and then we will come to other questions. Let me briefly just to comment. I wanted to ask Taras, I absolutely agree with his idea that, first of all, it's quite negative from the conceptual point of view precedent. At the same time, we have to know the role of the European Commission, who because of their functionals, they're trying to rationalize this and find a way out of it. We have to mention the role of the so-called monitoring group, which was launched as one of the elements of compromise in spring of this year to exchange information between the Ukrainian, Polish, and the European Commission side. And there has a very active information exchange about the market condition and whether there is any real negative effect from the excessive transportation of grains from Ukraine to Poland. I have a question to Taras, whether really this data from the information exchange about transit, about import, that there is no basis for EU countries such as Poland to insist that this local national ban of imports will somehow change the information, change the situation in the market. Again, that's always a subject of a permanent discussion. Of course, we have Bloomberg and some other agencies who are also discussing about these various factors. But once again, we really have there is a huge difference in arguments, in the viewpoints, because in our opinion, we believe that that's correct, that the lion's share of imports that was going to Poland, this was imports to ports, where this imports was going out of Poland. We do have the position of, again, farmers who also talk about the reservoirs for this bulk storages. They talk about something different. They have a different architecture of grain markets. So it's very much evident that the Polish farmer will not find declines on the internal market. They are trying to quickly, with the price that they want to get at the moment that they want. He has to really fill it into their own storages. And this is what happens in Poland. Because of a series of circumstances, the Polish farmers didn't want to buy at a price that was there, searching for a bigger price, so their storages are full. So these are not storages which are filled with the Ukrainian grains. These are the storages filled with the Polish grains. And that's where the question is, what keeps the Polish farmer from selling? The absence of the price that they want? And that's where we have a very interesting thing, that the Polish farmers don't want to talk honestly. They dreamt that the prices would be like they were in April 22, astronomical prices which were provoked by the invasion of the Russian Federation. So we can see that the prices really adapt to the pre-war levels. So it's very much evident in their eyes. It's like decreasing the price and they don't want to sell. And then the new harvest comes in, and that is giving birth to a number of dilemmas. That's our scenario. The Polish scenario, they say that you took away our clients, you brought the price down. That's how they model situation. We don't see any common ground. That's where the problem is. So, but if we do find the common ground, if we honestly say why this price is decreasing in the Ukrainian market, because we don't have clients, or they don't want to sell, or maybe the quality of grains has dropped. That's also a Ukrainian problem, Polish problem. That's the European problem. Because of the rains, less food wheat, more fresh wheat, animal feed wheat. So, but still, the discussion should be initiated. We are very much interacting with Romania, with logistics. We're talking about really good things, really meaningful things. But with the Republic of Poland, we have this certain political battle, political and trading. I mean, from the political point of view, it's okay. But in the trading policy, we have this misunderstanding. And that's one of my jobs, to change the focus of this conversation and find common ground and find the exit in a different way out. Many things. I think we have spent a lot of time to grains. It's not an easy point, and it really tells a lot about our relationship with neighbors. But coming back to the name of our webinar, is slightly open. What should we do to make sure it's not slightly, it's fully open? I'm bringing you to the question about recognizing equivalence, the common recognition of standards, and which other goods. What else we should think? Where else could be surprises? I'm coming back to Olga. Thank you. Veronika, what concerns the slightly open or full open, of course, I support Taras, who just said that really we have reached quite good results related to liberalization of our bilateral trade between Ukraine and the EU. And we should not really play down to these achievements, irrespective of this situation that possibly is not very simple, that we have between us and our neighboring countries in the trade of grains. So what concerns your question, really, truly, even this situation, I'm trying to always place this situation in a bigger picture, to see the bigger picture, and trying to see both the current year and the current situation with a much more umbrella point of view, to really look comprehensively at that. Who would know better if not the Institute of Economic Studies, of the policy. You personally, Veronica, because you write really good analytical articles about the process of our European integration and regarding the reforms that Ukraine is doing to make sure that this European integration would take place once again. As Nazar mentioned, this beautiful expression, how is the lowest, this lowest friction possible. But yes, the progress of Ukraine is not that bad related to standards, related to regulation in the agrarian field. In the agrarian field, things are not moving bad. It's quite okay, I would say. Of course, there are certain issues that relate to food security, food safety, not food security, and the issues that are more demanding from the point of view of the implementation, not only at the level of the state, because also there are two levels here. There is the government level and there's the macro level, how we're doing it at the legislative level, how our adaptation is taking place to some corresponding regulations and requirements of standards in the European Union. And there is also a level of business and the practical implementation about which we should not forget. And correspondingly, once again, our pace of these reforms, these European integration reforms, it's quite good. The only thing that I'm not the fan of the idea that we will become the members of the EU within 2 years. Moreover, what relates to the agricultural industry, there will be a certain transition period. I don't know how colleagues are looking at this. I don't think that we will be able to go through without the transition period for the agrarian sector of Ukraine. That's like a stage of accession to the EU. But what concerns the practical issues, that's where we have really some questions which are one other point at the macro level is something that and that's my personal observation as the person who is moving a lot between Kiev and the European countries and Germany and Austria and Poland and Brussels, we would need to be more active now inside of the EU, also to communicate these issues which are connected not only with agricultural complex, but again, in general, with our European integration exercise. We should do PR work, and we have to understand that talking to the European colleagues here, colleagues from the European countries, from the European Union, I can see slightly insufficient, I would put it this way, something that they're declaring that they don't have enough the level of the dialogue and the level of being informed that is of today regarding all the processes that pertain to European integration and our way towards the European Union. And what concerns, again, the current situation, that's also one of the examples. I mean, the situation of this crisis with the grains is one of the examples when we could use it in our favor, and colleagues have already recollected that entering some common phytosanitary inspections, that's the way Poland has gone through when they were joining the EU, and they were doing these inspections together with the Germans to make sure the Polish colleagues would learn from the German colleagues, and also to make sure that these processes would be more harmonized and quick. That's one of the aspects. The other aspect is what concerns really the infrastructure, about which we recollected. Nazar and Taras also mentioned about it. To me, it's one of the elements that we have to continue in a good way to pressure our European colleagues, especially in Brussels. Taras mentioned about Constanza. That's one of the good examples when the European Union, almost 1 year ago, if I'm not mistaken, during the first declarations of the Romanian farmers said, yes, that's there has to be additional financing allocated for the expansion of this port infrastructure, some capacity exactly in Constanța. I don't know whether this money was really additionally allocated to Romania to make sure that they would really improve and make the Constanța port really more able. Again, coming back to the speed of processes within the EU. And also regarding the adaptation of our issues, adaptation of our standards, of our business, also in a way that we're talking about the agricultural complex to the European conditions. Again, we understand that we have certain limitations to the participation of the Ukrainian business in European events and exhibitions because men are not able to get out of the country. Of course, it's also working good online. Not all the representatives of the European business have this possibility during the war to come to Ukraine, to Kyiv. I'm not even talking about other cities. So naturally, all of this is very much complicating this B2B work. But that's also one of the levels where I believe we would need to really intensify our dialogue and that cooperation after our victory. And something that I said in the beginning, from the beginning of the full-fledged invasion, that we have to work and build up our system of organizations that would lobby this or that sector of the Ukrainian economy in Brussels. We need to learn how to work for our and fight for our interests in a systematical way. That we have to have professional organizations that are supporting, that should be supporting our government. And once again, I believe that it would be really correct, and I'm trying also to do that officially and unofficially with European colleagues, is to bring them to the point that any decisions we're taking now, and that's about the trading policy that Taras was mentioning, we have to adopt these decisions that in some time, maybe not in 2 years, at some point in time, Ukraine will become the member of the European Union. So let's be realistic about it and let's make decisions today. Also, again, considering that we have agriculture, which is very important, that concerns infrastructure, building capacity of the logistics, but logistical capacity, processing capacity, anything. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the arguments that could bring our European colleagues to a point that we are ready to this win-win work in this sense, and we are not a danger, we're not a threat to the European market. Vice versa, we have your biggest value-added element, your achievement once we become the member of the European Union. So we have to build up the dialogue based on that, irrespective of the situation. When Taras mentioned for some political reasons, it's not simple now. Nevertheless, many thanks. I would also want to go back to the issue of cooperation and building up dialogue, but also some production chains. But Taras was raising a hand and then he put it down. Sorry, I was just reconnecting. So in any case, since I'm already addressing to you, I would like to come back to Nazar with some questions about some economic integration. But before that, Taras, I also wanted to ask you, was an issue, what else remains open to make sure that the European market would not be slightly open, but fully open? From your point of view, what else should we do? What else should be done from the EU side or from our side, apart from the infrastructure, which we have discussed very much detailed? That's a situation when we have I can only connect to you only in the audio mode. Sorry, I apologize. It's good that we hear you. Yeah. Good, we hear you. I apologize for not being able to show video. So the situation is that we have to do practically everything, no matter how we do it. our economy is still quite a lot from the point of view of being complete. There should be an agreement that we are finalizing with the European Union, because we have to accept that our industrial products do meet the European standards. I wanted to clarify what Olga was saying about some standard periods for the integration with the EU. In my perspective, these are not transition period that would allow to live under old rules, but that's a transition period when we will be actively adapting to these rules. So we can't talk with questions for some long transition periods that would allow us. But to adapt, we have to actively adapt, and they should be adapting to us. But that should be dynamics without formal joining. We see how Polish are reacting now, so we have to integrate all of these markets quite actively. So we do still have, no matter how digitalized we are, our digital services markets are far from being integrated. Regarding the climate policy, we still have a lot of things which we maybe are not that behind, but in fact the situation seems normal. But the point of view of regulation, it looks like we understand that not that much has been done. So we have quite a lot of things which we should do, not because we are not meeting these conditions, but to make sure to take out this wrong understanding of the Ukrainian products. If you want to sell Ukrainian products with the good added value, you have to do it yourself, and the state should also, if we have the organic furniture, it has to be organic furniture. That should not be an issue. So we have still a lot to do ourselves, and truly the trade is increasing. The number of companies are increasing, no matter what. So to make sure, but that doesn't mean that we are somewhere that we have done almost everything. No, of course not. From the point of view of opening the markets, we have done in many things regarding even the organic products. We have done a lot of in the development of the national legislation, but for the mutual recognition of this with the European Union is still quite far. Also regarding the GMO products, there is a new generation of discussions how science should intervene in these things. Also the issue about not sticking to so we have like a story that the products which are coming from the European Union, they do meet the European Union requirements. There was only one case in Slovakia. I think it was more than an exception than the rule. But with this, our regulation that really allows to the European politicians can say that we can use any chemistry and it will be okay to send it to the European Union. So even if you can do it now, doesn't mean that you can't sell it at better conditions. So we have to stick to these European rules without any exceptions. Choose what you want. Always there will be some standards and rules that need to be further implemented. Thank you. Thank you, Taras. And now the question is to Nazar. We're talking a lot now about the harmonization of this regulation. And what could business do? How we could provide this integration in costs? How to become not only the big supplier of homogeneous goods, but rather to provide deep integration of the industrial production process with the European Union. And that's where we have another question in Q&A about export financing. Whether this is the role of export financing, whether it's key, how it can increase, and whether it can help this cooperation, or it's about issue of big supplies. Thank you for your question, Veronica. As we can see from our data, and I have the pleasure among some of my functions, I'm also a chief of one of the Ukrainian Polish business offices, and one of our idea is to promote direct Ukrainian Polish contacts. That's about trade, it's about common investment. So it's my pleasure that I can see through my own eyes very specific cases of some active attempts and quite successful attempts of Ukrainian companies. I'm talking about not the raw material companies and agrarian companies. I'm talking about companies that do processing, how they can integrate into this chains of added value within the European Union, European industries, thanks to Polish partners. And I can tell you, in essence, it has become a very significant stimulus that has really made us, the war has really made us survive. And very often we see some diamonds in the sand when some Ukrainian companies who have survived over dozens of years, they have preserved the equipment, the production bases. They can propose interesting solutions at the European market and create common companies, joint ventures with Polish companies, combining their supply chain. The main obstacle is, I would say, three. The first is naturally the absence of cheap long-term financing. From this point of view, export credit agencies should really become more active in Ukraine, not in terms of the volume of financing, but as to modernize the design documentation in order to get access to loans. The other important aspect is liberalization of the customs regime, customs mode, investment goods, equipment. And number three is, of course, the movement to the ACA, to harmonize technical standards. That's an important issue, but the way it influences to the concrete position of the Ukrainian companies who are preparing this, it is not as important as the first two problems which I mentioned. Thank you very much. We have, while we were discussing this, we have a proposal in chat to send in the resolution to support the problem issues that we're discussing today to some Institute for Economic and Policy Studies. I have a feeling that we have discussed so many problems and so many proposals have given that people really want that we would really make a joint resolution, so to take things in their hands. I have one more. First of all, I didn't ask a question, and maybe I will discuss this, announce this if anyone wants to comment. The attempts of the UN coming back to grains to reinstall the grain deal and the proposals to Russia to guarantee and ensuring the non-attack of the Ukrainian drones or the Ukrainian armed forces on the Russian vessels in the Black Sea. Does anyone want to join this topic, to add something? The only thing which I want to mention, that I promised to Taras, not to keep him for more than 1 hour. So if Taras wants to comment, let's give the word to Taras. But he joined us. He joined us later as an official person. Honestly speaking, I don't think it's okay for the UN to agree in the format that is taking place. That once again we're talking about the lowering of the sanctions pressure on Russia. Once again, my personal opinion now is that in such a way we are sending a signal that Russia is being successful. They have really achieved what they wanted to achieve with their blackmail, with their terroristic acts in the Black Sea, their attacks on our port infrastructure in Ismail. If now the decision is taken that Turkey will be not Turkey, the UN that will agree that some subsidiary of the Rosbank will be once again turned into the international financial system. They have new requests, new requirements, their wishes, this Russian wishes, and first of all, this will be endless, and then it will be once again promoting this next level of escalation. I'm very much sure that they will be trying to prescribe the limitations related to our military actions. That doesn't fit in my head in any clever framework, because this full aggression that we have and the country aggressor is trying to impose this is not just not correct. We should not agree to their claims. And regarding this corridor, that what Taras has mentioned, not the 2, but already the 4 vessels have gone this temporary corridor. We should use the territorial waters of Romania, Bulgaria, but definitely not to lift the sanctions of Russia and give them the possibility. In such a way, we can come to a point. I'm sorry for being so emotional, but it really is painful, because this will be helping them to the Russian effort to squeeze us out from the Black Sea basin. So if they can't win us on land, to really squeeze us out from this Black Sea, this is not right and this is not acceptable at all. Thank you so much, Olga. That's emotional, but I absolutely fully 100% with you that first Russia has attacked to begin with, and we will now guarantee that we will not attack in return. This should, of course, is enticing a lot of emotion. Sorry, this is not how the moderator should do. Okay, we touched on some IT market, that still much to be done there. Do we have in general, what is the potential for the development of market of trading with services? Because we understand that much is said about some physical limitations on exports of goods. Could we somehow compensate this with proposing a much bigger volume of trade with services? Taras, I'm asking you because knowing that you will have to leave. In the trade of services, of course, we will be developing. Of course, we have the statistical problem, which is related to a point that we'll have to understand how to this will evolution, how will services be making evolution, the transit, and what concerns the under-the-ground storages, if it's a potential stopping of transit in 2024. If it will be somehow compensated to what is stored. But reality, the digital services will continue to develop in Ukraine, and very evidently that the business services will continue to develop, same as they developed in Poland, in other centers. So really, we have to understand that the main factor here, the main point is the initiative of entrepreneurs, to which extent Ukrainians will be structuring their business and developing it. So naturally, there will be a huge debate from the point of view of how to regulate digital services. Maybe I'm being too radical about it, but in reality, the whole branch of economy is hyperactive, albeit the war we have the experts of digital services is much bigger. But the question is how we regulate it, to which extent we, of course, we are supporting the European Union. But you also see the European Union is not being that positive about regulation on the global level what concerns the digital services. So there is a lot of discussion. We simply have to enter this discussion. We have to implement the legislation on protection of personal data, something that is happening very actively in the European Union, but in part of such things as the e-services, electronic signatures, something that is consolidated in our country in DIA application. That really helps us, but that is not all. So that's like a separate universe that we should talk about, and maybe it's not structured really well. We can talk about the agrarian sphere quite structurally, about various niches, about various goods, about some services which are not yet taking place. Although we understand that some simple things like roaming, there are some technical nuances that require a lot of approvals and alignment, something that we started starting from 2017. But even with such a very simple example, we see that not everything is so simple, not so automatic. It's about changing of billing systems. It's about the tariffs. So there are quite a lot of nuances that influence the business models. And our operators are joining this discussion, and that's just a small add-on. So we have to see each other once again. So that's quite an abstract reply, but once again, I propose to make it like a separate discussion. I would be happy to do that. Talking to Nazar, talking about transport IT from the point of view of the cooperation with Poland, which other services arise and whether business sees any limitations. Do you mean cooperation between Poland and Ukraine? Colleagues, I apologize. I have to say goodbye. I have a very tough schedule. I just returned from Bucharest, but I'm ready to join the future discussion. Good seeing you. Thank you, Taras. Everything's all right. See you next time. I have a question now. When we're talking about the services, everybody says about the digital market, about IT. Naturally, there is a separate question which is connected to transportation, transit versus the gas storage and energy sector. But from the point of view of relationship between Ukraine and Poland, about business, what else can come up when we're talking about the services? Oh, these are the two or three main directions, and we can't talk anything serious about anymore. Because for us to understand what should be a priority, we have to see the full list. Yes, I understand. I don't want to overestimate what I wanted to say, but our practical experience of operation in Ukraine, there is a great potential of exports of engineering services from Ukraine to Poland. What I mean, over the last 10 years, we see a significant rise of industry, of building, construction, design of construction, of the whole solutions, in part either equipment for the energy objects, I'm talking about electric stations, or equipment for the production of objects in agricultural. This could be poultry factories, units to process agricultural produce, also for the sake of the renewable energy sources. There is also a big potential for the construction of stations, CES and VES. There is such a potential. Moreover, the professionals that can do this are quite competitive on the international market. They all speak languages. They also very well understand the best practices of digitalization of such processes. They are very much oriented in the software, the best software products. So we have encountered a number of proposals from the Ukrainian companies who are searching for Polish clients, not even partners, but clients for their services. So there is such a potential. I don't want to overestimate or underestimate. I just want to bring your attention to such an interesting potential. What is interfering us? Out loud, saying it out loud. First of all, these are the limitations. Limitations for the business trips for men. Secondly, once again, there could be an industrial visa-free regime in order to reconfirm the certification that the Ukrainian equipment, which is proposed within such services, does comply with the European standards. So its procurement should not be a problem for the European clients, for our companies. And in essence, this would be, of course, financing is not that much important. I just wanted to bring your attention exactly to this very interesting, unexpected potential of our economy. Thank you. Thank you, Olga. I can only add, definitely we have the potential, we have the market, and most interesting is that during this full-scale aggression and invasion, because to some spheres or sectors of our economy, some serious attention was given, which was not possible before that, even from the European countries, that also concerns agriculture in its wide sense, not only production, not only growing grains, but how our agriculture works, thanks to which why we have such a successful agricultural sector. Plus, additionally, this was also recollected several times about the IT solutions and the developments. This is also combined with what Nazar has said. This could also be in various spheres. And I can say that we really are not that bad, have gained experience, our IT specialists, our IT companies. Of course, our IT people are working for outsourcing for many companies, but also Ukrainian IT companies who have developed some comprehensive solutions. And moreover, I can tell you that this is not very pragmatic, this is more emotional. It's very much a pleasure to hear some good things, good feedback from Germans. First of all, they say that Germany lags behind Ukraine, not only as government, but also as businesses. And therefore, they're also looking at solutions that the Ukrainian companies can propose to them. That's nice. That's a pleasure. The second is the transportation services about which you mentioned. in a bigger sense, because everybody remembers how many compliments our Ukrzaliznytsia has received Ukrainian railways. Of course, there are certain things to be developed, but the system of management, even Germans are facing the big problem that concerns the logistics infrastructure of their passenger and cargo transportation. And correspondingly, once again, I'm coming back to my overall idea that concerns all of the issues. I'm always trying to bring you to the condition that Ukraine will in any case become the member of the European Union. So you really have sense to look at Ukrainian partners from this point of view, to Ukrainian solutions, to Ukrainian companies who can somehow help you to do this, because this will, in any case, will be developing. Thank you so much. And I fully agree with the idea that Europeans have to start thinking now, not only to think, but also to move, because God gave, after the big end of the war, Ukraine will have a prominent space in Europe, and that's where people will get the biggest income. Of course, we have to do something ourselves, some fundamental things, but nevertheless, I trust that this is how it will be. We have one more topic before we will be closing our discussion. We have some issues related to the intellectual property that is very much close to IT and protection of some physical goods. Would anyone would be ready to comment on this intellectual property, or shall we leave it for our future meeting? Do we have any problems with the intellectual property when we export or when we do imports? Let me shortly mention this. I'm not a pro in this sphere. We do have issues related to the intellectual property. It's something that Taras Kachka said about the protection of personal data. Of course, that's where we still have much to be done ahead of us, because exactly in this, or because of this, the Europeans are being very cautious working with Ukraine, even if we have some practical good solutions, but they start to ask questions that relate to this. And the rights to intellectual property, this is one of the biggest issues that still needs and that limits the investment of Europeans into Ukraine now and after the victory, because, of course, unfortunately, there are cases when these companies have seen that their rights are not protected enough, their patent rights are not protected well enough. And of course, it's not China in Ukraine, but there are certain threats exist, and this is the sphere which requires our attention to make sure that it would be moving in both ways. And again, this will translate into investment into Ukraine. Thank you so much. I do agree. Some last comments just to reflect on what we have discussed, and we will be slowly closing our discussion. Let me shortly add to what Olga has said in terms of the intellectual property. I really want to pay attention that really the war has unfortunately is putting a lot of shadow on it, shadowing a lot of possibilities. But let's imagine the war would finish as it should finish, and we are open to investment, to companies. There will be a huge field for Ukraine in terms of also protection of personal data and intellectual property. We have to complete the reforms and provide the conformity of Ukraine to some key principles of the so-called, of the general regulation on protection of the so-called GDPR. Why it's important, not only from the point of view of protection of personal data of consumers. Of course, consumers is absolutely a priority for the state, but we are also talking about that for companies, the growing companies, the IT sector, which is trying to move from selling raw materials to value-added products, to creating real products, working on some databases of users. It's important for them that it will be recognized that Ukraine has implemented GDPR. I was tackling this issue during my diplomatic career in Brussels, when we were trying to jump on this train when GDPR was just being effective. It's very much simple. However, the devil is in the details. If Ukraine could prove to the European partners that we would really fulfill these principles for protecting of private data and private intellectual property, that the companies would correctly use and really correctly protect the rights. So the companies who give such services to such giants as Microsoft, Google, as Amazon, for various kinds of operations with masses of personalized data, they have a huge field opening up for them for business growth. But unfortunately, this issue, this space is still closed because Ukraine has not yet recognized GDPR, and only separate companies have to rework their processes and bring their processes, because we have the right, and these profits are lost. So they are generated in Ireland and in some other countries. Clear. Thank you. These are the topics which are very actual, and even our listeners, and this is to GLIP, together with the recommendations, to discuss this, whether the intellectual property is kept or not kept. Thank you, Veronica. I will be taking away from you the moderator status. I would like to say some technical issues. First of all, those of you who have joined us during the midst of this discussion, we have the full record. People will get also the link to this video, and all of it that has been said will be translated into a special note. And from CES, I'm very much thankful to Veronica for agreeing to moderate this and to ask very professional questions to colleagues, and to Olga, Nazar, and Taras, that you really replied in a very good manner to all these questions. Many thanks to all. Thanks so much for organizing this. Thank you, Veronica, for the moderation. And please stay safe, support Ukraine, support armed forces of Ukraine. Many thanks for really good questions.